The autumn rain drummed against the windshield as paranormal investigator Sarah Chen pulled her Honda Civic to the shoulder of Midlothian Turnpike. Through the passenger window, her research partner Marcus Webb watched droplets streak down the glass, distorting their view of the tree line that concealed Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Neither spoke as they sat in the growing darkness, the weight of 17 months of documentation heavy between them. Sarah's digital recorder sat silent in her palm, its red light dormant. She had recorded over 40 hours of electronic voice phenomena in this place, but tonight felt different. The voices they'd captured had been getting stronger, more coherent, and increasingly disturbed. 3 weeks ago, Marcus had enhanced an audio file that made them both question everything they thought they knew about the dead. The recording contained a woman's voice, clear as daylight, pleading, "They're taking our names. They're taking who we are." Marcus adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and checked his equipment bag one final time. His thermal camera hung around his neck, its lens cap secured. After 6 years of investigating allegedly haunted locations across the Midwest, he'd learned that Bachelor's Grove demanded respect. Located just northwest of Chicago's suburban sprawl, this small cemetery had generated more verified paranormal reports than any other location he'd studied. But the phenomenon they were investigating tonight had never been documented before. "You brought the photographs from last month?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible above the rain. Marcus nodded, patting his jacket pocket. Inside lay 37 photographs of gravestones, each image time-stamped and geotagged. The problem was that when they returned to photograph the same graves 2 weeks later, the names had changed. Not all of them, but enough to make both investigators question their sanity. The most disturbing change involved a weathered headstone near the cemetery's northeast corner. Their August photographs showed the inscription clearly: Margaret Fulton, beloved wife, 1889 to 1923. When they returned in September, the same stone read, Margaret Hensley, lost forever, 1889 to 1923. The birth and death dates remained identical, but both the surname and the epitaph had altered completely. Sarah had spent weeks researching both names. Margaret Fulton had indeed been buried in Bachelor's Grove in 1923, according to Cook County death records. But no Margaret Hensley appeared in any official documentation related to the cemetery. The woman had been erased from existence, her identity replaced by someone who had never lived. The passenger door opened with a metallic creak as Marcus stepped into the rain. The groundskeeper said the cemetery closes at sunset. He called over the weather. "We got maybe 4 hours before anyone checks on us." Sarah joined him at the trunk, where their investigation equipment lay organized in foam-lined cases. Her EMF detector, infrared thermometer, and backup cameras represented thousands of dollars of scientific instrumentation, but she knew the most important tool was her grandfather's old Polaroid camera. Instant photographs couldn't be digitally manipulated, and the camera had belonged to her family for 37 years. The forest preserve surrounding Bachelor's Grove stretched endlessly into darkness as they approached the chain-link gate. Someone had cut through the fence years ago, creating a narrow opening just wide enough for determined visitors. Sarah squeezed through first, her equipment bag catching briefly on the twisted metal. Inside the cemetery boundaries, the temperature dropped noticeably. Marcus's thermal camera immediately registered the change, displaying a uniform decrease of 7 degrees across the entire viewing area. He documented similar temperature anomalies at Bachelor's Grove before, but never this pronounced or consistent. The cemetery itself occupied less than an acre, its boundaries marked by crumbling limestone posts and rusted iron fencing. Approximately 80 graves dotted the uneven ground, though local historians estimated that over 200 burials had occurred here since the 1840s. Many headstones had vanished over the decades, stolen by vandals or claimed by the aggressive vegetation that flourished in the perpetual dampness. Sarah's flashlight beam swept across familiar monuments as they navigated the muddy pathways. The Fulton grave stood 20 yards ahead, its pale granite surface gleaming wetly in the LED glare. She'd memorized every crack and weathering mark on the stone during their previous visits, studying it with the intensity of an art historian examining a masterpiece. "Sarah," Marcus's voice carried an edge of uncertainty that made her skin crawl. "Look at the Campbell marker." She turned her light toward a small headstone near the cemetery's eastern border. During their last visit, it had commemorated James Campbell, who died in 1902 at age 30. The stone now read Jackson Campbell, with the same death date and age. The change was subtle but unmistakable, as if reality itself had shifted slightly to accommodate a different truth. 3 alterations in 1 month, Marcus whispered, consulting his notebook. The patterns accelerating. They documented the Campbell change with photographs and measurements before approaching the Fulton grave. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she positioned her camera, remembering the sleepless nights she'd spent researching Margaret Fulton's life. The woman had been a schoolteacher, married to a local blacksmith named Thomas. She died young from tuberculosis, leaving behind 2 small children who were raised by relatives in Wisconsin. The headstone bore her married name once again, Margaret Fulton, beloved wife. The September alteration had reversed itself, restoring the original inscription as if the mysterious change had never occurred. Marcus knelt beside the grave, running his fingers along the carved letters. "The stone's warm," he reported, glancing at his thermal camera. 8 degrees above ambient temperature, concentrated around the nameplate. Sarah's EMF detector began chirping erratically, its LED display flickering between 0 and maximum readings. Similar electromagnetic fluctuations had preceded their most significant paranormal encounters at Bachelor's Grove, but the intensity tonight far exceeded anything they'd previously recorded. "We're not alone," she murmured, scanning the cemetery with practiced eyes. The woods beyond the fence rustled with movement that couldn't be attributed to wind. Shadows shifted between the headstones, coalescing into half-formed human shapes before dissolving back into darkness. Sarah had witnessed similar phenomena during previous investigations, but the spirits seemed more active tonight, as if their presence had awakened something that preferred to remain undisturbed. Marcus's camera flashed repeatedly as he documented the electromagnetic readings. Each burst of light revealed glimpses of translucent figures moving through the cemetery, their forms flickering in and out of visibility like old film projections. Some appeared to be searching for something, wandering aimlessly between the graves with expressions of profound confusion. "They're looking for their names," Sarah realized, the truth hitting her with sickening clarity. Someone's stealing their identities. Her grandfather's Polaroid camera hung heavy around her neck as she approached a cluster of headstones near the cemetery's center. The instant film would provide undeniable evidence of any changes, creating a permanent record that couldn't be altered or disputed. She raised the camera and fired, the flash illuminating 6 graves simultaneously. The developing photograph showed something impossible. While her eyes saw 6 separate headstones with different names and dates, the Polaroid image revealed only blank markers, their surfaces smooth and unmarked as if the inscriptions had never existed. The names were being erased in real time, vanishing from both stone and memory. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Look at your EMF detector." The device was displaying readings that defied explanation, its needle pegged at maximum, while the digital display showed negative values. The electromagnetic field surrounding them was inverting, creating a bubble of reversed energy that seemed to be drawing something from the graves themselves. The temperature plummeted another 15 degrees as a figure materialized near the Fulton headstone. The apparition appeared as a middle-aged woman in early 20th century dress, her face twisted with desperate anguish. She pressed her hands against the granite surface, mouthing words they couldn't hear. "Margaret," Sarah called softly. The spirit turned toward them, her eyes wide with recognition and terror. When she spoke, her voice resonated not through the air, but directly into their minds. "He comes at midnight. He takes our names and gives them to the living. We become nothing, forgotten, erased." "Who comes?" Marcus demanded, his thermal camera recording the spirit's image as a column of superheated air. "The Namekeeper," Margaret's voice whispered in their consciousness. "He feeds on identity, on the essence of who we were. Each name he steals makes him stronger, more real. He's been harvesting us for decades, selling our identities to those who wish to disappear." The cemetery fell silent except for the rain drumming against granite and earth. Sarah's watch showed 11:47 p.m., and she felt an overwhelming urge to flee. But scientific curiosity overrode her survival instincts as she realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in paranormal research. "How do we stop him?" she asked aloud. Margaret's form flickered like a dying light bulb. "Remember us," she pleaded. "Speak our true names. Make them permanent again." The rain intensified as midnight approached, transforming the cemetery into a maze of shadows and reflecting surfaces. Water pooled around the headstones, creating dark mirrors that seemed to show different names than the ones carved in stone. Sarah and Marcus huddled together, their equipment readings spiking beyond comprehension. At exactly 11:59 p.m., the Namekeeper arrived. He materialized as a tall figure in a black coat, his face obscured by shadow, but his presence unmistakably malevolent. In his hands, he carried what appeared to be an ancient ledger, its pages glowing with an otherworldly light. As he moved through the cemetery, headstone inscriptions began shifting and changing, names flowing like liquid from one marker to another. Sarah raised her camera, but the Namekeeper turned toward her with supernatural speed. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "You will not remember what you've seen here. Your memories will fade like morning mist, and my work will continue." "Like hell," Marcus snarled, triggering his thermal camera's video function. The Namekeeper laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Your devices cannot capture what doesn't officially exist. I am the guardian of forgotten names, the keeper of abandoned identities. These spirits gave up their claim to remembrance when they died. I merely redistribute their essence to those who need new lives." He opened his ledger, and Sarah glimpsed pages filled with handwritten names, birth dates, and death dates. Some entries were crossed out in red ink, while others pulsed with golden light. She realized she was looking at a catalog of stolen identities, harvested from graveyards across the region. The living pay handsomely for authentic documentation, the Namekeeper continued. A name with a complete history, birth certificates that predate digital records, identities that can't be traced or questioned. These dead have no use for such things anymore. Margaret Fulton's spirit materialized beside Sarah, her form more solid and determined than before. "We never gave up anything," she declared. "You stole from us while we slept." Other spirits began appearing throughout the cemetery, dozens of translucent figures emerging from their graves. They surrounded the Namekeeper, their combined presence creating a vortex of electromagnetic energy that made Sarah's equipment scream warnings. "You cannot stop me," the Namekeeper snarled. "I have contracts with the living, obligations that transcend your petty concerns about identity and remembrance." But the spirits pressed closer, and Sarah understood what they needed. She opened her notebook and began reading aloud from her research. Margaret Fulton, born 1889, died of tuberculosis in 1923. James Campbell died 1902, survived by his wife Helen and 3 children. Elizabeth Morrison, beloved daughter, taken by scarlet fever in 1897. With each name she spoke, the corresponding headstone blazed with sudden clarity, its inscription becoming sharp and permanent. The Namekeeper's ledger began smoking as the stolen identities returned to their rightful owners. Marcus joined a recitation, reading from his own notes. William Patterson, veteran of the Civil War, died 1899. Mary Catherine O'Brien, immigrant from County Cork, died in childbirth 1891. Thomas Anderson, age 7, drowned in the Des Plaines River, 1888. The Namekeeper screamed as his power diminished, the stolen names fleeing his ledger like released birds. His physical form began wavering, revealing the truth beneath his human guise. He was composed entirely of forgotten identities, a patchwork creature built from harvested memories and abandoned histories. "I'm nothing without their names," he whispered as his form dissolved. "Nothing but empty need." As dawn broke over Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Sarah and Marcus found themselves alone among the headstones. Their equipment had recorded everything, providing unprecedented documentation of paranormal identity theft that would revolutionize the field. But more importantly, they had restored dozens of forgotten souls to their rightful existence. The headstones now displayed their original inscriptions with perfect clarity, each name carved deep enough to last another century. Margaret Fulton smiled at them from beside her grave marker before fading into peaceful rest, her identity secure once again. As they gathered their equipment, Sarah noticed fresh flowers appearing on several previously neglected graves. The spirits had found peace, but their story would live on through the investigators' documentation. She made a mental note to establish a memorial website listing every name they'd helped preserve. The rain had stopped, and sunlight filtered through the trees as they walked back to their car. Behind them, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery rested quietly, its dead finally able to sleep knowing they would be remembered by name, not forgotten in the shadows of someone else's stolen identity. In her equipment bag, Sarah carried 37 new photographs of headstones, each image time-stamped and permanent, each name preserved for future generations who might otherwise never know these souls had existed at all.